Hey guys, it's Core Ross and Rainbow Six News. Today we're looking at the mid-season balancing for Rainbow Six Siege, and this is already on the test server if you want to play it, and it'll probably be up there for 1 or 2 weeks, and of course there might be some significant changes before it actually hits live. So let's start with the balancing graphs. And the attackers is up first, and it's a really weird graph actually, because no one's very high in the win delta apart from, of course, Finka. But let's actually talk about Finka and Yana as well, because both of them have an extremely high presence now. Look how Ashe has dropped down to 30% from where she used to be. That is insane. And personally, I love it because, of course, it means we don't have the usual Ashe at the top all the time, and it swings around with the balance and changes. But now we have two new ones, which is Yana and Finka. Now, to me, I think the reason is the gun 6 and the frags. I love that when I'm playing ranked right now. So I play these characters both quite a bit at the moment, and that's why I love them. I think Finka, there's a lot of people, all about the LMG meta, which I'm quite happy for it to stay for a little bit longer, because remember how LMGs just used to never get picked for the first 5 years of Rainbow Six Siege. It's kind of nice that they have a place right now, but I assume they'll do something about that in the future. But yeah, I do wonder if this is a problem with having a gun 6 and frags on the same character, and it's showing how useful that is. But right now, these characters are not getting changed in these balancing changes. So for the moment, both these characters are going to continue to be at a higher level. Now, I do wonder if the developers' plans actually involve something that will hit both these characters, whether it be future balancing changes or a future defender that might actually compete with their gadgets in some way. But back to the overall graph. So for me, like I say, it's weird not to have other operators kind of peaking up in the win delta and everyone being so flat. There's also a good chunk that are actually in the center, so balancing wise, it's not too bad. But we do have just operators dropping off the board here. We've got Monty, Blitz, Glaz, Blackbeard, Capital, Cali, and Gridlock really not doing well, and they're not getting a huge amount of help in these patch notes here, but they are getting some. So we'll move on to the defenders graph now. And the defenders graph is looking very, very normal, what I would totally expect. We got Jaeger up there in the high presence, but he's not winning as many games. We've got Melissa doing okay, Valkyrie doing okay, and Valkyrie has had her nerf this season. She seems to have not really been impacted at all by that nerf, which I'm not surprised by. I think those cameras being used inside will end up actually being more powerful than using outside ones just to get an easy kill. Then we have Thunderbird doing pretty good, and then an absolute clump of them in the center looking like they're pretty well balanced. And then the ones that are not doing well is Clash, Goyu, and Castle. We'll have to see if Goyu, it might take a bit of time for him to be used well, so he might still come up at some point, but they also might need to buff him in the future. Of course, Castle not doing that great. I do wonder if there's going to be any buffs for him someday, but right now, of course, there's nothing. And then Clash doing terrible as well. But other than that, the defender graph here, and of course, these graphs are PC, Platinum and above, so it's a high level of Siege. And of course, that's the minority of players, but the developers are actually basing all their balancing changes on the entire player base, and this is just the distilled version for us. Moving on from that, we've got the ban rate, so pretty usual here. We've got Thatcher, Jackal, then no ban. Kind of interesting that there's a no ban option being used in the high level of ranked, and that is the third option. Amazing. But then we've got Muntang, and then also and it drops off to the rest of the operators. Then on defense, we've got Mira and Valkyrie very close to each other. Then we've got Kaid, and again, no ban actually coming out into 4th place. And then obviously following up with the rest of the operators after that. And that leads us into the balance and changes. Now, because this is already on the test server, I have gameplay for you, so we can actually go through this bit by bit. So first of all, Bandit, he can now stack up his batteries on reinforced walls. Now, the reason for this is if Thatcher came along and EMP'd them, then he doesn't have to pick up the old battery to put a new one down. He can just put the new one down immediately, then pick up the old one if he wants to. So this is going to be a small quality of life change for Bandit. Shouldn't have a massive impact, I believe, but it is going to be a much nicer thing to cope with if, of course, you're doing Bandit tricking. Moving on from that, we've now got Blackbeard. He is losing the breaching charges and gaining a Claymore, or more specifically, 2 Claymores. We'll go over that 2 Claymore thing later though. Then we've got Gridlock. She is going from 3 tracks to 4 tracks. So that's her main gadget. She's going to have an extra 1 of them. I haven't been playing Gridlock much at all. I don't actually know why, because I used to play her all the time. Haven't been playing her much. And this is definitely a change that is interesting to say the least, because that's a lot of tracks. That really is. And this change might just get me back to playing Gridlock again. Up next is a change to Nomad and Oryx's knockback effect. So what happens now when you get knocked back? You will stay prone and then you'll bring your weapon up rather than standing back up again. This means you can of course start shooting earlier. I think this is going to be actually really useful, of course, against Nomad, and kind of unlucky for Oryx, because if Oryx does actually manage to charge you, he should be getting the kill out of her, really, because that, that's a hard thing to do. So he's going to be easier to kill now if he directly charges at you. But let's move on to the controversial change. Now, I don't know if this is coming around because of all the previous talk of removing passives and being like, everybody's always been against passives. I haven't been too fast with the passives, but they're now removing a passive ability from Smoke, which is that he can no longer run through his own toxic gas. Now this makes, I guess, some sort of sense, because of course the SAS operators all have gas masks on and they cannot go through the gas, but Smoke can. So maybe it's more consistent, but I don't know. So I'm curious to see what the reaction is going to be from the people who want to remove passive abilities from all the operators, and if they like this or dislike it. And I am actually going to read the developer reason for this here that they've given. Haven't done it in the previous ones because of course it's all pretty small changes. But in this one they say, while this change is pretty explicitly a nerf, it mainly targets what is essentially a special immunity just for Smoke. Adding, this vulnerability should make it more obvious at a glance how abilities affect all operators, even if they are technically wearing a gas mask. Removing Smoke's immunity also impacts the most hyper-aggressive Smoke players. The gas can still be used for area denial to apply pressure, but Smoke can no longer prowl through the denied area without paying a cost. So that definitely seems to be leading well into the non-passive stuff that's been getting pushed a lot, and I think that's why this has actually happened. I also don't think it's going to have a huge impact on gameplay. I don't think most smokes actually push their smokes. Some obviously do, but I think in most cases you just throw it to the other side of the room, set it off, and use it as area denial rather than a way to be aggressive. But certainly it removes the aggressive option now. Anyway, moving on from that, we've got a buff for Warden, but also a little bit of a nerf as well. So his glasses will now last for 20 seconds instead of 10. But his cooldown is doubling from 10 seconds to 20. I don't know what to make of this one. It's both a nerf and a buff, and yeah, I don't know. It's probably useful, like definitely having a longer duration. Like if you've got some flashbangs coming in, it'll be handy to have it on for longer, but I'm not sure. This is one I'm going to simply have to play on the test server and see how I feel about it once I've played it for a bit. And then we've got what I would say is a very big nerf for Ying, and she is one of the most underpicked operators. So her flash duration, so the actual flashbang effect, is going to last 1.4 seconds instead of 2.8. I've got some video footage to show you a quick example. It's obviously going to be different depending on the range from the flashbang, but it shows that it is a significant difference in length of time, making Ying more vulnerable when using the gadget for assaults. But it's not all bad. She is getting 4 candelas now instead of 3. But I don't know what they're trying to do here, because to me this makes her gadget more inconsistent, because people will be less blind quicker. And obviously getting another one is, wonderful. But if they're just inconsistent, no one's going to play her. So I don't know if this is going to have a huge impact either way. And I don't know if it's going to be good or bad. And the developer's reasoning here for this is that this is kind of reverting back to a previous state from past patches, and giving her another candela but making them less impactful will hopefully be, good. I just don't know if this is going to be a good change or not. Again, have to jump into the test server and see what I feel about it. However, let's move on to the final change. And I think this one is actually the biggest change in this, which is we're going to be getting 2 Claymores instead of 1. And of course, that's for Thatcher, Ash, Twitch, IQ, Blackbeard, Capital, Jackal, Sophia, Lion, Maverick, Kali, Ace, Zero, Flores, and Osa. And I am a huge user of the Claymore, so this is just dream come true to get 2 Claymores, and I'm super happy about that. So yeah, this I would say is a very powerful change. Obviously, I think that the main use for Claymores is to stop runouts, but now that I have 2, I'll probably put one outside the map for a runout, and I'll probably use the second one actually inside, potentially an objective or something like that. So this is going to totally change up my Claymore strategy. And yeah, loving it. That is a wonderful change for me, but I'm curious what you guys think of putting more Claymores out there, because that's going to be a lot of Claymores that can be used to cover different areas really well. Anyway guys, that is the mid-season balance, and obviously no big operator reworks, and I would say no massive changes that are going to really affect gameplay this season, but a few tweaks here and there that will have a little bit of impact. And let me know what you think is going on with the attacker graph. Why is it so flat? What the heck has happened since this season started? Or is it just attacker repick is actually somehow flattening that curve out that is stopping operators going up in win rate? For some reason, that seems unlikely, but there must be a reason for it. Anyway guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.